it's either cold or it's hot.
That's right.
I mean, I can't regulate that thermostat in there. I mean, I pull it down to 68 to try to cool it down, it don't help, it just keeps being hot.
And Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to take up so much time, but Mr. Powell might, and I don't know a lot about this pneumatic control system, he might could elaborate something on that. I don't even know what it all consists of, or how it's set up, or how it works. I know Ms. Bozeman made a statement, they had it turned up,
We did.
yesterday.
I called them, let it roll.
Let it roll.
Not yesterday,
Oh.
last week.
Oh, God.
And then it hadn't been cut back, cause we knew this other weather was coming.
This system, pneumatic controls are outdated. It's a past system. This is gonna have to be upgraded. Parts are getting harder to get. This system is never going to work like it is. It needs to be changed to a, digital system, which is rather expensive, but it can be done in stages, where that you get away from these pneumatics with the swing that you have in the controls. But when you get heat, you cannot get any cool. You're either gonna get heat or nothing. It's the way it's designed. Because each individual unit gets hot water from the same bar. And there's no separation of it. And the air conditioner and the heat won't run at the same time. Because the air comes out of one fan, so you can't have air and heat. It's heating and cooling at the same time. You can get one or the other.
Well, I guess
But
it's,
if we switch it to digital,
You get a more accurate control with the digital controls than what you do with these pneumatics. And it's just, like I say, it can be done in stages. It doesn't have to all be done at one time. But it would be on a computerized system. You could put it on a computerized system to where you could have control of the main system, but not the individual rooms, or you could, but that would get very expensive. Each room would still have its own control.
now what I'm hearing you say, Mr. Powell, is that the entire courthouse operates off the same boiler.
Right.
And even if you put digital thermostats in every office, and it's not gonna control the heating or the cooling in either one of those offices, I mean, what we got's, to me, is really no better than, you know, what you're talking about, except you're spending a lot of money to put in a fancy little thermostat in your office.
The only difference is you get, your thermostat would be more accurate than these. Basically, otherwise, you're right, you don't get anything else.
Right. So, I mean, I've talked to some heating and cooling people, and of course, they say that this pneumatic thermostat has to be calibrated at least 2 to 3 times a year. And, but my question, I guess, to the board is, what do you want to do? Do you want to go back to Mr. Hodge and have him give us preventive maintenance price plus an hourly? Mr. Joe, what you think?
I think we can do that, can we? Have to rebid it.
Have to rebid it?
Give us specs.
If we believe the bids are not responsive, and I think, to be honest, you know, part of the problem's on our end, we need to make sure that when we are advertising that we've got specifically what we're asking for, but if we believe the bids are not responsive to, you know, what we've requested, we can reject both bids and then ask for it to be rebid with a little more detail given on our side. Or an alternative, if you believe they are responsive, then, you know, we need to choose the lowest and most responsive bid.
Well, me personally, I'm somewhat confused as to how much it would actually cost under HVAC to do the preventive maintenance. They've got it figured at an hourly rate, and I don't know how many hours it's going to take to actually do it at the outside stations. Probably won't take over an hour there, but here in the courthouse, it's probably gonna take somewhat more time. But, bid top, bid A.
Yeah, but he tells you what he's gonna do, that he's gonna change the filters, clean the coils, oil the motors, and maintain the units. The boilers, the pumps, condensed units, and air handling units is $85 an hour. This is the best bid right there. He's telling us how much that we gonna have up front.
But I don't think it's gonna be a fix to it. I think we're gonna have to live with the, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I should have got recognition from you.
Okay.
Again, my concern, whichever one of these we take, I don't think it's gonna cover what is gonna be really needed to try to get this system straightened out. I mean,
It's gonna keep us going.
you know, whether we go with either. And as far as us, yeah, we can have our meetings anywhere, we could move to another place. But, there's people in this courthouse that cannot move to other places, you know. And it's bad, getting too hot or getting too cold can really make people sick. And I don't like to see that. I still stand on it. Somehow, in some way, we can come up with the money. We need to do some improvement on the system, because it seems like we're trying to find somebody out here for a still small amount of money can make something work that's not gonna be workable. And you couldn't hold them responsible for it, because we're not doing what needs to be done to make improvement to it.
Well, being what you said, Mr. Billy, I think the board needs to probably take a good hard look at this system and see what can be done in stages to correct what we got going on up here, because, I mean, I'm like you, I don't like just throwing money at a problem just to
Right.
try to maintain something.
Well, you said that's where I'm coming from, yes, sir, thank you.
And I think that we possibly need to look at what it would take on a gradual change. If it takes putting dampers in some of these offices on each floor, and if it might take a couple of 3 years to do it till we get the money together. But, that's what I'd recommend is for us to take a real hard look and get some solid estimates on what it would cost to upgrade third floor. I think third floor is probably have the most problems. And then gradually go down to the first floor and, just see what it's gonna cost to do it. That's my recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with what you're saying, that we need to start making changes. But in the meantime, we gotta keep going.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion, whether it passes or not, we continue on like we're going, and that we rebid this, and we rebid it in a way that will start making corrections towards making the system, work more efficiently and, more accurately, and we can get another bid from them on that.
You say continue like we're going.
Well,
Okay,
Mr. Powell's been doing it for some
right,
time.
and Mr. Powell's bid.
Can I say something? Preventive maintenance has nothing to do with the operation of the courthouse, how good it works, how bad it works, or
Right.
whatever. Preventive maintenance is to maintain the units, find any repairs, because if you service these units, it saves you money and saves on repairs. It has nothing to do with how this courthouse operates, preventive maintenance does, other than the fact that you service the units. The controls is a totally separate matter altogether of how this courthouse works.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
My last comment. I appreciate that, Mr. Powell. That's the first time that I have heard that. I mean, in times past, we thought when you were called that you were coming to try to correct the problem we were having.
We do.
But, I understand what you're saying now, just the service. And the service, whether we continue with you or with the HVAC, things are not gonna be any different, basically, than what we are experiencing at the present time. And that's what I'd like to get away from, yes, sir.
But see, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
on Mr. Powell's scope of work now, provide preventative maintenance for HVAC systems and change filters for all county buildings once a year. Inspect air compressor oil levels, filters, operations, and maintain system at the courthouse monthly. This agreement does not include changing the filter roll for the main unit at the courthouse, and I understand that. And it's $4,500 a year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, I mean, we know what it's gonna be for a year just to maintain us on this bid, but we don't on this.
Okay, we need to.
Is that what your motion is, to continue on with this bid? And then start looking at
Start
other rates?
looking at something that's, to fix the situation, yeah.
But it's to go with the $4,500?
Yeah, that's like we.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
I mean, we know it's got to be maintained and serviced and kept up regardless, that's right.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the bid of Powell Refrigeration. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
$4,500, man, no more. We don't spend no more money.
For what's on that sheet?
Too what?
For what's on that sheet?
Right.
Let's go ahead and sign it and give me a copy of it now and get started.
Do that. Let's get cooking, you know?
Copy Mr. May and hand him back whatever he needs.
If we open that door out there, wouldn't some of the heat run up
If
that
you look that,
stairway?
if you look that door out yonder, you'll cool it off in there.
It won't take long.
Can anybody open it, don't I come go around there and open it?
Yeah, all you gotta do is open it, and you're gonna have to scotch it there.
I'm hot.
Getting kinda warm up here.
Thank you.
I'm comfortable.
Okay, as we move on, the next proposals are for CPA services.
First bid is from Malden and Jenkins.
These include one copy.
They didn't say what one copy. What did they have to say? Submit one original and 5 copies.
Find the money. Here's some of it. Paperwork.
What they had to say? Submit one original and 5 copies.
Start at the back and go forward. Okay. This is a three-year contract. The 2014 audit, looking at $31,500. 2015 audit, $31,500. 2016 Audit, $33,000.
What was that third one?
33.
33,000.
33.
Well, they need it.
I don't know, man.
I need to ask a question.
Next bid is from Hudson and Neesmith, certified public accountant.
Y'all gotta start putting prices on the first page.
Look in the back.
Okay. Hudson and Neesmith. Year one, 2014, is that 24.5? Yeah.
36 times 25, 750. Is that right?
24.5 for 15 too, is that right now? 25,750 for 16.
Mr. Chairman, since they're here, I got some questions for you.
Okay. Which one of y'all wanna be the lucky one to come to the podium? John, since you're up next, I already, you ought to come to the podium.
Just keep the seat hot, right?
John, what departments is these audits gonna include?
They're gonna be all departments.
Okay, is that the commissioner's office to include all funds?
That's
And
right.
I think we now have 14 funds, because we had to separate LMIG,
Yes.
solid waste,
Solid waste.
to include the office at the landfill site.
We'll
Okay.
determine that.
Clerk of courts to include the Superior State and Juvenile, Magistrate Court,
That's
Sheriff's Office, Tax Commissioner's Office, Probate Court, Building and Zoning. And that will you email all this to the Finance Director to be uploaded and sent to the Department of Audits after the audit?
Yes, ma'am.
And you'll give us 10-pound copies
Yeah,
of the audit. You'll attend the Commissioners Board meeting to explain the audit. That's what you're here for tonight.
That's what I'm here for tonight.
On the DCA reporting will be completed, email to the Finance Director and the Chairman to be sent to DCA before December 31st.
That's right.
I remember that one. And it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault.
Always that
The
last
Health Department
minute.
was holding us up there.
That's right, that's right.
And the adjusting entries, you'll email them to the Finance Director.
That's right.
Very good.
All
You did good on that, Miss Laverne.
He does all that, and then that takes me a weekend to get them done.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we award it to Hudson and Neesmith at 24.5 for 2014, 2015, and 2016 at 25.7.
Have a second?
Ms. Bowden, would you clarify that motion? Seems as though 14 and 15.
I did the years, 24.5 for the first year, 24.5 for the second year, and 25,750 for the third.
Thank you. Second motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We didn't get but one bid on,
I'm good.
we got one bid on this building.
That's correct.
More than one.
We didn't get a bid from the steel company.
Sure did. Nobody called in.
We need more than one bid on this much cost.
May I?
Well, this one right here is gonna be for the internal stuff, not the
Right.
Building
Exactly
itself.
right. I was about to say, this is just on,
Oh, the building and everything?
Plumbing and-
Oh, okay, he said the building and everything.
so it's in that one packet.
Yeah, we didn't get but one bid, we sure need more than one bid on it.
Yeah, we bid this thing for 4 weeks.
We was in the paper.
May I say something? Construction Journal also called and requested the bid packet, and it was sent to them, and they published it, and still didn't give them one bid.
Really?
Gotta go with bid you got. If it's responsive, and if it is an adequate and responsive bid, then it is the lowest bid.
But I'm good.
I like to tear it down and look, you got something to. Dog, most of it on the looks and then we look some.
Yeah, keep that on top. Oh, wrinkled in it.
Forget about that.
There's 5 copies of it.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Is this everything? About everything.
Just have to take a look at this bill.
You wanna see?
Wall pack, lights, emergency lights, emergency exit.
This includes everything but the fence.
Everything but the fence, right?
Okay.
Well, I guess my question is why we need such a big building when we've got a lot of empty office space here in this county? I mean.
In this county,
Yeah, you got.
you want evidence put out on the public word.
No, ma'am, I did not say public works.
Well, that's what this building's for, is for evidence.
Well, you got what size build is this thing? 1,000 square feet? Is that what it figures out to be?
This is 25 by 40.
Yeah. That's pretty close to 1,000.
220, big frame, big floor.
Yes,
You said it was 25 on it?
25 by 40.
It's 1,000 square feet.
It's 1,000 square feet. That's $3.60 a foot. project is a fan that I bought Fred then, that you put in your hand and you put it up.
Yeah, Fred.
I'll try to buy you one.
But to answer your question on 1,000 square feet, by the time we get all the evidence out of all these corners and the closets and all that we got it in, we'll have it over half full. And that ain't counting any of the new evidence that we'll be bringing in.
Well, all you gotta do for it, too. She started mentioning that, told me you knew me reading.
And we have this money in buildings and,
It comes out of
ground.
SPOS 5 buildings.
Total price on this quote from Gulf Plumbing, Electrical and Construction. It's $36,032.70.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we award the bid to, who'd you say it was, Golf Plumbing?
Gulf.
That was 36 point.
$32.70.
There's a second.
I second the motion. It's Mr. Chairman, it's probably like, storage rooms. We went to buy one, my wife said, we don't need one near that big, so we went on and bought the bigger one. And I guess in 2 weeks, it was full. And she was wondering, well, where are we gonna put this other stuff? So I don't question, the need, Chair.
I guess my concern is spending this much money for a building that, it's a lot of money. And, you know, we're telling folks that we don't have money to do things, and then I get feedback from people when we start to spend this kind of money. They wanna know where we're getting the money from.
This comes out of SPOS 5.
I know where it's coming from.
Mr. Chairman, how long has it been since we have spent money out of that plot five?
We-
Mrs. Burns probably not here.
We probably got
She is
200-something thousand dollars in it. But the money has been set aside countywide
And that's all.
for these governmental type buildings that everybody in the county uses.
And that's all it can be spent for is on
Right.
things like this. It can't be used for other things. And
Right.
that's what we need the people to know. It's not, I mean, there's certain funds and monies that you can only spend for
Kill one
certain
each
things. And, it's not like you can pull it out of there and help another situation where you're in need of it.
Y'all went over there and toured the jail, didn't you? And I
Yes.
gave y'all a tour of the investigation office.
Yes.
And I showed you all the closets with the padlocks on it and everything else, even on the nurse's room over there, where the inmates go and get seen. There's a closet there with a padlock on it, it's got evidence in it. And you know, you can't secure stuff that's just so good in closets. Especially when they're full and the doors on them rimming out, because you can't put no more stuff in them.
We set aside Laverne, isn't it $250,000 that was set aside in the SPOS 5 for governmental buildings?
Right, and there's been 70,000 of it spent. So there's like 180,000.
But then out of our total $800-something thousand is set aside for all countywide projects.
How much-
Like recreation, governmental buildings.
850,000 for all countywide projects, right?
How much, we've got $600-something thousand in there now.
Yeah, we'll need about 85,000
$80,000.
more dollars to be totally through with putting aside 20% for countywide projects.
Right. So we've got the money in that account.
got the $180-some-thousand in that account, you don't have that 600 you're talking about.
Yeah, that's already set aside.
No, that's a different project, so.
And this will be one of
We got
the,
$600,000 out there to play with, because a lot of it already been allocated to different projects.
now, we spent $249,000 for, recreation.
Right.
We spent, the, other buildings, that's the 3 fire stations, we spent about, what, $60,000 or $70,000, right?
Okay, on recreation, we've actually spent more than 249,000, we spent 249,000 just on that property.
On the property.
And, but I have my SPOS report in here, I can't tell you the exact figure, but there's more than that been spent on recreation. The library is through, they have spent their
Yeah, the library's
$100,000.
through.
And, so we got money left in buildings, about 180,000, and then whatever's left in recreation.
But we got the money to do this bill. I think that's right.
I mean, I'm sitting there with every one of my closets, corners and everything full of evidence. I've got evidence riding around the back of patrol cars, cause I ain't got nowhere to put it. And if I ain't let a good lawyer get a hold of that, what you think's gonna happen? All these people out here doing crimes that goes in burglarizes y'all's houses and stuff, they gonna be walking the streets again.
You ain't got a knife on you, have you?
I got one in my office. I checked in at the door down there.
I got this one. Let me shoot it over. He's trying to open it back. I tell him I have a pistol. I can open it. Well, we got the money to do it.
My concern is one day we're gonna build a jail in that building, and we're still sitting there, we're gonna build a.
We can't build a jail with this money.
I know it, but we're gonna have to build one day, and that building's gonna be left there.
In the meantime. When you think we gonna store this stuff in the meantime, you talking about millions of dollars for a jail. We ain't talking about $36,000. We got a motion second on the floor, let's move on.
Ms. Biggs, Board, we have, spent $289,210, okay, of the,
800.
and at this point, we need $88,251 to complete the $850,000.
Right.
So we have enough money. for
I
whatever
mean,
we're
that's
gonna do.
subtracted every month when this comes in.
The library's through, and the governmental buildings is at, right at $70,000 that we've spent, so.
Yeah, the library's through, we figured to do something else down
Okay, we got a motion on the floor for approval of the $36,032.70 building. All in favor?
there.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna reluctantly agree. I don't think we need this bigger building, but, in the way in the arts, I don't want evidence floating around everywhere where it could be contaminated or not using the legal system, so I'm gonna sort of reluctantly vote.
Mr. Gaines, we can't hear you down here.
I'm gonna reluctantly vote for this because I don't think we need this size of building, but I do not wanna take the risk of evidence being floating around in cops' cars and being contaminated and interferes with the legal process. So I think if you look at the two evils, if there is two evils, I'm gonna vote for the building. For the motion.
Okay. I like Mr. Gaines. I'm gonna reluctantly vote for it. So that will be a 4-0 vote. Okay, let's move forward. John, come and give us a report, please.
Short, quick.
Y'all warmed up, ready to get out of here. Well, if you've got your audit reports, it's the large black bound copies there with you, and I've got I've got one other letter that I'm gonna be referencing, titled the management letter. It'll just be in there loosely, if you've got that as well. I appreciate y'all taking the opportunity to allow us to speak to y'all tonight. Touch on some of the highlights of the financial statement audit, address some of the internal control findings that we found during the audit, and offer a few suggestions that we feel could possibly improve internal controls based on just the procedures we performed. And then also just point out some of the highlights. I know that budget season is coming soon, and of course we're looking at historical data, being as June 30th of 2013. But we still feel like that the trends that are taking place in our county now and over the past couple of years are probably going to be pretty consistent this next year coming up. So, of course, we want you to be aware of that when you approach budgeting, over the next couple of months. Just to give you an overview, the audit, of course, as Ms. Bozeman already mentioned, as she was asking questions about our audit proposal, we do look at various departments throughout the county. It's up here is where the final product presents itself, but we do look at all the funds, all of the departments, on an audit basis. Now, I will give you the caveat that we don't look at each and every individual transaction. That's just time and cost prohibitive. And under auditing standards, we're allowed some leeway on that. We use judgment as to what we consider riskier areas. And we sample, we look at transactions on a sampling basis. We look at comparisons amongst several years to see what the trends are. We look at counties around us that are similar in size to see what they're experiencing comparing to us. And we compile all that data and that information in order to give you an opinion on the financial statements. That's the ultimate goal of the audit, is the audit opinion. And that opinion is basically, are we okay, or do the financial statements as presented to us for audit, are they fairly stated in all material respects? A lot of people, you probably hear it in a more common language term of a clean opinion. So that's the ultimate goal of the audit, is the audit opinion. The audit opinion that we issued the county as of June 30th, 2013 was an unqualified opinion, meaning that we had no reservations as to the fairness of the presentation of the financial statements. And just for your reference, if you look at pages 1 and 2, you'll see what I'm referring to. The auditing standards have changed the way we state our opinion. It breaks it down in a more usable format. You'll see subheadings under there for the responsibilities and how that responsibility is shared during the audit process. And that's an industry standard. That's a requirement. That's what we're giving to you all as a result of all our procedures. So that gives you the financial statement side of this audit. with the county being a governmental entity, we also have to give you an overview of internal controls. Because we are taxpayer funded, we want to make sure that the money is being spent appropriately. We want to make sure we have controls in place that prevent any kind of issues that would result in a misstatement of these financial statements. And so we look at that, we look at internal controls, we decide do we have controls, and if we do have controls, are they in place and functioning? And so if you look at the latter portion of your audit report on pages 63, starts on pages 63, or I'm sorry, 61 through 65, you'll see what I'm referring to as the governmental auditing standards portion of the audit, where we're looking at internal controls. And you probably hear that referenced out there in the industry where people talk about a finding, an audit finding. And you know, that's just part of the process. We're not here to beat you up and penalize you. We're here to help you, and we want to point these things out to you because we want to make sure that they can be corrected and we can move forward from those things. Just to highlight those findings, because I believe those are important to you as a board, as you're the one setting procedure. I wanted to touch base and go over those individually if you give me that opportunity. The first one, lack of segregation of duties, that's one that we repeat every year. And the reason being behind that is because some of our constitutional offices, some of our just departmental offices receive money and disperse money. And they don't have adequate staff to properly segregate those processes. In an ideal world, there would be a different person for each process, from the receiving of cash to the dispersing of cash to the reconciling of bank accounts. That's the ideal world. We know that that's pretty much cost prohibitive where we are. We're not gonna hire a bunch of people to satisfy these roles. There's a cost benefit related to it. We're not gonna hire somebody to mitigate these risks, because to hire somebody might cost more money than the benefit of a reduction in risk. I tell you that because it's been cited, and it's been cited in the past, and until we hire more people, it'll probably be cited in the future. But we also understand that in our offices we do have some high-level reviewing going on. You as the board review things. You make sure that if we're out of whack in one department versus another, we're going to go investigate and try to see what the problem possibly is. And I want to give you a statistic that might be interesting to you. You also need to rely on your employees, and you also need to make sure that we have a strong whistleblower program in place. In its last report in 2012, the Association of Fraud Examiners, this is the standard setting body for fraud examinations. They indicated that through their casework, through their different fraud cases out there in the public, that 43.3% of fraud was detected through employee tips from whistleblowers. We want to make sure that those whistleblowers, if they're here, that they have no fear of retaliation if they see something they don't like, or they see something that's not prudent. So I tell you that because that's one of those things that does kind of piggyback with this segregation of duties. Make sure your employees know, hey, if you have a problem, come see us, or come see your manager, or come see somebody above you that if you might have conflict with. That's the first finding. The second finding was another repeat finding from last year. This is one of those key controls that we feel is important, and that is the payroll timesheets. When the timesheets get to us on the office at this floor and we're processing our payroll, we want to make sure that whoever the person is that's in the supervisory role that's vetting these timesheets up to here has signed off on them and has reviewed them. We had a few, I'm not going to say a lot, but a few, enough to warrant our concern that some were not signed off. So we encourage Kim, I spoke with her before we finished, to always make sure before she processes payroll that those timesheets have been signed off by a department supervisor or whoever that management person is that's dispersing or that's releasing these timesheets up to here for processing. The other part of our audit, governmental auditing process involves determining if we have complied with the various regulations, grant agreements, contracts, laws that exist that could affect our financial statement amounts. One of the things, and Laverne and I have talked about this, so it's nothing new to her, and I believe we've already fixed it, but of course this is in retrospect we're looking at, is the fact that we need to make sure we're separating our SPLOST money from our non-SPLOST money on the bank account level. It's okay to keep it in a fund because the fund is a capital project fund. But when we get LMIG money, we need to make sure that LMIG money is not commingled with the SPLOST money. And that's something that I know your attorney can agree that we referenced the official code, just so you know. And I believe we've already fixed that. We've got a new bank account, and it's in there now. That's just something to think about in the future, of course. And then the last finding, and the last one is related to compliance. And this is related to your expense reimbursement. Under the IRS code section, and I'll give you the code section 62, this is pertaining to accountable plan rules. And what that means is when we go travel, we're okay to get reimbursed for our travel. The IRS just has outlines as to what is going to support that travel, so it will be a non-taxable event by an employee. When we were reviewing disbursements, we noticed that there were some checks written for mileage, that the mileage was okay, that checked out and it matched the mileage amount, but some of them didn't actually have a business purpose associated with that mileage. That's just a statement that you just need to make on your mileage reimbursement. And that would satisfy the IRS accountable plan rules, along with what we've already got, the date of travel, the total mileage, the destination, and we just want to include that business purpose. And I'll tell you why it's important. It's because if we don't follow that rule, then that's deemed taxable income to that employee as if it's wages. And that means that they're going to have to be subject to self-employment or Social Security and Medicare tax, along with possible federal and state tax. And the county is going to be subject to its share of Social Security and Medicare tax. That's an easily fixable issue. We just want to make sure that it is fixed, so we won't have that problem in the future. So that's high-level findings. And I say high-level meaning they're on the financial statement reports, and they will be shown. The second one is a management letter. And these are suggestions that we feel will improve your internal control system and hopefully make things possibly more efficient, more substantive for various types of evidence, and can help you out in the future to where we might not have these high-level findings again. And this is in a separate letter, as I mentioned. If you got that, take a look at it with me. The first one is related to payroll. When we were looking at payroll testing, we noted, and again, let me go ahead and interject and say that I believe this was fixed because I was actually in the process as Kim was trying to fix it. We noted that there were some employee files that did not reference the current rate of pay. When we do a test of our employees, we want to make sure whatever the paycheck or whatever their gross pay matches the hours that they've worked times the hourly rate. And we were trying to make sure that we had the current hourly rate. That's just a matter of fixing the files, cleaning them up, make sure we've got the most current rate of pay. And we also like to see, as the board, whoever makes the action to increase or decrease the pay as necessary, why was that caused? Was it across the board pay raise? Was it a change in employment status? whatever that case may be, and an approval process. We feel like that would help and strengthen your internal control from that perspective. Switching down, going into some of the highlights of our travel expense, you can see the travel expense is one of those areas that we always feel is high risk. It's an area that is very subject to abuse. So anything we can do to help strengthen those controls over travel, we encourage you to do it. One of the items that we suggest on that is when we're traveling, and we're getting reimbursed for that travel for whatever reason, whether it's mileage or food or lodging, that if they're going to some type of training or some type of meeting or some type of class, that we include some agenda. Most of the time when you go to some type of training, you get a class agenda, or you get something a certificate indicating that you've been there. And that's what we want to see, is something that proves that person actually went and traveled. I mean, I don't want you to think I'm implying something that's being abused. It's just a strengthening control that could be easily solved and easily fixed. When that person turns in their expense reimbursement, they just stick something in their class schedule, itinerary, or something like that would support that they actually went to where they said they were going. A third suggestion, and this is something we've seen in other clients that I personally like, I think it's great. Nowadays with GPS and internet and Google Maps and MapQuest being so prevalent, we've seen where when a employee travels, they give a supporting document that says, I went to XYZ city and Google says it's 200 miles and my odometer matches 200 miles. We're all in agreement that it's a legitimate cost, it's a legitimate mileage. Additional support wouldn't take much more effort from the employee standpoint. Just go online, print this thing out, include it with their expense reimbursement, and we've got additional support. Again, it's not a make or break thing, it's not a requirement, it's just something that we feel could help you in your internal control environment. On the back page, the last page, this is just some miscellaneous things. As I was going through our aging and our accounts receivable for our garbage, Halida and I worked through that and tried to figure out what we needed to do about documenting the process of writing off bad debt. When it comes to the point where we've exhausted all methods of trying to collect that account, there comes a time where we need to decide that account is no good and we need to write it off. So we suggest, as your auditors, that you need to document what that looks like and be consistent. When this happens, we have a flow chart of events that needs to take place. By the time it gets to the end, that account is written off and we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's. The fifth suggestion, this is something I've spoken with Laverne about. I think it sounds like y'all are correct in that, is to make sure we've officially delegated her authority as a finance director, and this is Miss Jennifer's, of course, leading and guidance on as your attorney. We want to make sure that she has officially been delegated to where she can open and close accounts as needed. She can go out and look for the best rates on CDs. And we've made that, whether it's a motion or a resolution, whatever she suggests you do, we just want to remind you that's a code section that we want to follow according to the official code of Georgia. And then lastly, I think it's already kind of been brought up about our jail construction and renovation fund. That's one of those funds that we found on the books that we're generating a little bit of income on. And if we're going to build a jail or do a major renovation, then we're going to need some more funds that are going to come in to help that. And we suggest, again, with your attorney's decision making and how all that would shake out, to maybe open up some discussions with other cities in the counties. It may or may not work, but we know that the money needs to come in a little bit faster in order for that project to really gain some traction. And so that's just another suggestion that we saw from the dollar side, what we saw as the revenues coming in that we needed to make you aware of. So that's highlights from the internal control portion. Now I try to be brief on this because it's not quite as involved, but I do want to point out some actual highlights from the financial statements. If you look at your just the financial statement portion, if you look on page 7, this is going to give you your general fund and your special purpose local option sales tax fund, which is your capital projects fund, and then our other small miscellaneous funds all lumped together. And mainly I want to concentrate on the general fund just because that's the fund that, you know, spliced is specific projects that we can only spend that particular money on. General fund is for obviously the general operations of the county. We had a fairly large decrease in our cash. Just to be as blunt as I can say, our cash went down $509,786 from 2012. That affects our current ratio. That's one of the ratios that we tend to use to see what the liquidity of the county is. Can we satisfy all of our short-term debts, our accounts payable, our accrued expenses, our payroll, and things like that with just cash, assuming nothing changes. We don't get any more revenues, we don't incur any more expenses. That current ratio, just to give you the formula, is your total current assets divided by your total current liabilities. And in the case of the way we present the governmental funds on a modified accrual basis, which is on page 7, that is very simple. It's the total assets divided by the total liabilities in that particular page. Our current ratio for 2013 was 2.992. Okay, we like to see a 1-to-1 ratio, and really in a governmental entity, we like to see a greater ratio than that. 1-to-1 would mean we could pay off all of our outstanding liabilities with just our current assets. So we're greater than that 1, but in comparison to 2012, we have gone down. Our ratio for 2012, June 30th, 2012 was 14.467. So you can see we did have a pretty good decrease. Now I'm going to give you what has happened, why that changed. We tend to have we have some accounts receivable from the garbage side that are booked as income but not necessarily realized as cash because we're still collecting that. But for the most part, most of our money that comes in is on a cash basis, meaning the revenues have come in and we are receiving the cash for them. Our revenues went down in 2013. Our revenues went down about $296,000 in the general fund. A good portion of that, just to give you some background, a good portion of that was because in 2012 we had a pretty large surplus asset sale. I don't know if you can count on that every year, but we did have a larger asset sale in 2012. That was $140,000 for 2012. We didn't have anything for 2013. So when you have that, along with the fact that our sales tax, which is an economy-based tax that's been driven by whether people buy, shop locally, that's gone down too. And we've seen that trending for 2 or 3 years now. That's just the nature of our economy. So those revenues went down. Our expenses, unfortunately, went up. Our expenses going up, of course, again, we're mostly on a cash basis, meaning we're paying these bills with cash money. Those expenses went up. Our expenses for 2013 compared to 2012 went up $121,570. So when your revenues go down, your expenses go up. That creates a storm of we're going to lose some cash. So the main driver behind those expenses going up had a lot more payroll related to not just the actual payroll expense, but also the benefits have gone up. We also had, and I know you know this, but we also had that major flooding at about February or March of last year. A lot of expenses related to that. Hopefully that's a one-time thing, but you don't know that. And so that, along with those increases in payroll expenses, cause our expenses to go up. So I'm telling you that because I want you to be aware of that when you're going into your budgeting. You all, as the board, have to determine what are you gonna do to help fix this. We need to look at what do we need to cut, or what do we need to raise. That's your decision. I just I want you to be aware of it and be educated on it. Because I'll give you this, and I think I gave you this highlight last year. I always like to give you the rainy day fund. That's basically taking your total expenses in your general fund, dividing it by 12 months, and this is how much it costs to operate the county on a monthly basis. I'll give you the warning. Some months are going to be more, some months are going to be less. This is, of course, an average. But to operate the county, it costs $824,087. When we look at it from the standpoint of if we took that number and divided it into the amount of unrestricted cash that we had, we would have a rainy day fund of 1.5 months. That means that we could operate operate with our cash depleted to zero, with no more revenues coming in for a month and a half. I tell you that because we like to see 3 months or better. I mean, anything is better. So we want to make sure that, you know, we look at that, we try to build these reserves back up and figure out a way as to what that's going to shake out. You know, what do we need to reduce or increase. So in conclusion, I just wanted to tell you that, you know, we're living in, we're seeing signs of recovery in other places. It seems to be we as the county, we're the last to experience the bad side, and we're gonna be the last to experience the good side. So plan accordingly. That's my kind of warning for the final message. Now, I'm open for questions. I know I've taken a lot of your time. Please let me know if you want to think about it. We're here in town. You can always call us.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I got a question for you, and it's not really concerning the audit. It's on this landfill collections. I want to know, every month, how much is billed out and how much is coming in?
I'll tell you this. When we looked at reserving an amount for bad debt, meaning this is what the trend is on a monthly basis, we're collecting about 70% of what we're billing pretty consistently on a monthly basis. So 30% of those accounts are not being collected. Now, some of those, well, if they're still being billed, then they're still, in theory, receiving the service. So we got a problem with that. We got a problem with that. Because we're still paying the garbage company, whether we're collected or not, they're still billing us, and we still have to pay them. So the way it works is the ones that are paying are supplementing the ones who aren't paying.
This is what I got in my box to tell me about the landfill. This tells me nothing.
What I think you need, if you really want to look at it from a cash perspective, you need to look at your accounts receivable activity for the month. How much is being billed is going to be your debit.
Right.
How much is being credit, or how much are you receiving in cash and bad debt write-off is going to be your credit.
Right.
That's going to give you your activity in the simplest format.
How do we get it off of this system in Lincoln?
We could export that. You know, Laverne can export a detail of the account very simply through
Would
Excel.
you please get this done?
I just walked back in.
You're on the hot seat.
You're on the hot seat.
What they want to do is what I had emailed you about that activity of the AR. You know, what was collected versus what was billed. The I will say this about that report. Now, you do have to factor in that some of those payments are going to be for prior months. They're not all, it's not gonna be cut and dry. Some of them are going back to some months, but it'll give you a pretty good estimate as to what we're billing versus what we're collecting.
That's what I need to know. And I've been begging for a year to get this,
We can get it.
and I get told that the software won't do it.
Yeah, we can get that. I mean, because there's probably another report that they could build for you, but this is gonna satisfy that pretty quick.
Well, is it something, John, that you can actually go into the software that we have here and show Helita how to pull it up, or is it?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what we normally do when we do our audit, is I ask Laverne to print me out what we call a GL detail. And what that means is all the activity that's flown, that has hit that account during that month. And she could, I mean, that's simple. She could do that.
Piece of cake.
Piece of cake.
Piece of cake, huh?
But it would just be, she would just have to query it just for that time period. So January 1st through January 31st. And then she could tidy it up, I know, and make it look nice and presentable. But it would be whatever, one column would be how much was billed and one column would be how much was receipted.
Right.
Because the way that AR works, because we got that fixed several years ago, is every time that person's getting billed, it's automatically updating your revenue. But we know that that's not all gonna be collected. But unfortunately, the way it works in accounting is we have to set that up as an accrual and reserve a portion of that as a bad debt accrual. A bad debt, meaning it's not all the balance is gonna be collectible.
Well, that's one thing there, the past dues is what really bothers me is how fast they're building.
Right.
And, we need to do something to either adjust the way it is being, calculated, or make some adjustments in the, I guess, the percentages that we're charging.
Yeah.
Cause it's growing,
Oh, sure.
I mean, it's growing by leaps and bounds every month.
You probably get to a point where your late fee's more than the actual service, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have old accounts like that.
Look, Mr. Chairman, when Kim did this, she was on top of this stuff, I'm telling y'all. She was doing a great job with that landfill out there. We wasn't seeing what we're seeing now.
Yeah, still seeing $1 billion uncollectibles.
Well, I'll say this, and I commend you for doing this, because Laverne already told me that y'all are gonna set that landfill into a separate fund. And that will be much more accurate as to what the activities of that, what is going on. Because when we have it in the general fund, it gets lumped in with so much other stuff that it's hard to separate out what's actually landfill versus everything else. When we set it up as a proprietary fund, in theory, in accounting theory, a proprietary fund, which is going to be what this landfill is, it should be supported on user fees only. When you start having to transfer money over to supplement it, then it's not a business purpose. It's another project of accounting. So it needs to be, when you look at it from a retrospect from a year, see what it looks like. Because if we're supplementing money in taxpayer taxes to supplement services, that means something needs to change. That's feedback.
Can I ask you another question? Sure. Of course, 911, you know, we've seen a decrease in revenues coming in, because everybody's getting rid of their landline phones, and they're going to cell phones now. So I realize that you get $1.50 still off of your cell phone. But then we should have this other fund coming, I don't know if it started yet, on these, cell phones that they're selling at the drugstore and
Yeah,
Fred's and
the
all these
prepaid,
places.
yeah.
There should be some money coming in on this now.
It is, We hadn't got, I think last year was the first year, isn't that right? The prepaid.
Prepaid, last year we got 15,000, this year we got 40-something thousand.
Yeah, so I think that was a timing issue because the law didn't take effect. I don't know when the law took
Right.
effect, but it wasn't a full year revenue wise. But you're absolutely right, that fee is well, I shouldn't say that. It's
It's
designed to support 911 with that fee only. But we know we transfer money all the time to
Yeah.
supplement that.
Which they can in Fulton County.
Right.
I mean, when they got 3 million people up there. They can do it there, but
and-
we can't do it with our population.
Well, and we're running calls out of a large county, so
Right.
that costs some manpower, which, you know, you can't cut that service once you start it.
Shit, you'll get cold.
No, that air pump's up there rattling. But that's something there that bothers me about the cell phones. I mean, folks will go to Albany and they'll buy one, and I know it's supposed to roll over
Mhm.
and we're supposed to get the 150 over here, but my question is, are we getting the 150 from all the phones of the folks who live here in Worth County?
I don't think accurately, no, I don't think we are, because a lot of phones will have a different area code. Well, that person, they're still thinking is wherever they are. I don't know how they map that phone to know what county it's being used in other words. If it's a 770 area code, then that's North Georgia. But the person has moved here, well, who's getting the revenue? I
They're
think
supposed to be
they're
doing it
still.
by the zip code, but it ain't happening, I can tell you that.
Well, I know down on my end, my zip code is Doran,
Right.
and I can almost bet you that Colquitt County's getting my phone.
Sure, it probably is. And you're right, y'all said it. People are cutting landlines where that used to be the cash cow. Now we're cutting it down to one phone per household, possibly. Well, used to be $2 or $3, now it's $1.50 because they don't have that landline. Well, that hurt, and we do a report on that every year to submit to the state. And Laverne always separates out Bell South, Plantel versus wireless, and it went way down this year, way down with Bell South. That tells you people are cutting off their phones.
But the thing also, John, is for when folks had one landline coming to their homes now, anybody that's husband, wife, and 5 kids,
Mhm.
chances are those 5 kids have a cell
Cell
phone,
phone,
so
yeah.
you got 7 phones
Yeah,
there.
that you should
Right.
offset that difference.
Right.
Sure.
That's because
absolutely.
they do the share thing now.
Yeah, but you're still paying it on
You
each
got
phone.
one line there.
Still paying it on each phone, though they do on mine, cause I got 3, and they flat charging $1.50 per each.
Yeah. And it might seesaw back. I mean, you're right. More people are getting separate cell phones than they used to. It used to be, you'd have your landline, then one or two people would have one in their household. Well, now your children have them, and everybody in there. So it might flip back. I do know that the landline revenues went way down.
Well, I know I've talked to our Verizon representative. In fact, I asked her to get me a report, and they are very reluctant
Mm-hmm.
to give you that report so you'll know how many actual phones are in Worth County.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, I asked her twice for it, and I've yet to see that report.
Yeah. And
Well, Mr. Cosby, on that report, it still ain't gonna be accurate. Because right out there in Isabella, right there in my field, is where you switch from Verizon back to Altel, which will now be, AT&T.
AT&T, right.
So you still not gonna be accurate by just getting Verizon.
Yeah. So who's the
You
one
gotta get
putting
'em
up
all.
the deal? I'm sure on the high level, the actual compliance side, on their compliance, there's probably a lot of error. I mean, I just would think that it'd be hard to track those things. But, unfortunately, we're the ones that, we just get the check, we don't
Yeah.
audit it.
Yeah. Well, this day and age of knowing where you're located, you have a phone and they know where you are.
They know where
We
you
get
are,
us a
they have a
drone, we can
GPS.
find out where they're all at. Flying all over the county.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Neesmith?
I appreciate that.
Thank y'all, I appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Look forward to another 3 years.
We look forward to working with y'all too. Thank you. Y'all do a good job.
Okay, so move on with our agenda. Mr. Gaines, do you have anything?
No, sir.
You better back up and pick up the.
Oh,
whole
yeah,
business.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Anxious to get through already. Okay, on the old business, on the GBI building contract, we received a letter from the, GBI concerning some wording in our agreement. Ms.
Deborah Purcell.
Purcell came and spoke with us a couple, 3 meetings ago. We agreed to transfer the ownership of, the property out there to the GBI, and in the language, it was stated that if the GBI state of Georgia were to vacate the property would deed back to the Worth County Board of Commissioners. And, the state did not like that reversionary clause, and they want it, removed. Miss Jennifer, what do we need to do on that? Just take that clause out of there, or just, rewrite the?
Can I tell you something?
Please do.
They gonna do the deed, but see, we wanted the reversionary clause in there, so that the property came back to the county. But and she told us that,
I remember.
that because of bonds and the way that they would pay for their building.
And that's what she says in her letter
Right.
here, that state bond monies or any type of state funding won't allow that type of reversionary clause, so. I think if that's in fact the case, and it's still the board's will to give that property to GBI, what we probably need to do is just do a motion to rescind the original motion, and then do a new motion that doesn't contain the reversionary clause.
I'll do that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we rescind the motion that was made, and I'm thinking this was, December the 4th. I think it's right.
We can look at it.
Isn't that correct?
It's December the 3rd.
December the 3rd.
Yeah.
To rescind the motion that was made then, and that we deed all the property to the GBI with the state of Georgia without any clauses attached to it.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, just for clarity, and I apologize, but just for the record, we'll need a motion to rescind and a vote on that motion, and then the second motion, the new motion, and a
Okay.
vote on that motion.
Okay. Need a second on that motion to rescind the original motion.
Second motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we deed the property to the GBI with the state of Georgia. And there's a description on all this land stuff. Without any clauses attached.
Reversionary clause.
Reversionary.
Okay, way to go, okay. Okay, we have a second on that.
That's the remaining 11.58 acres.
Right.
Okay, that description is in your motion, I'll second the motion.
Okay.
It is part of the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
That's their problem out there now, they
Yep.
keep it cut, they keep it drained, whatever.
We got a fish pond out there now.
I guarantee you there's.
Okay, on the new business, motion for signature at the bank. This has to be a part of the minutes. We are, doing new signatures on the accounts, and it has to be a part of the minutes, so we need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that the, signatures at the banks be approved by the board.
Okay. Have a second.
Second motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so move on down to the commission's agenda. Mr. Gaines, do you have anything?
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Ms. Betty?
No, I think I got all of mine out of John.
Okay. Mr. Billy, you have anything?
No comments.
Okay, all righty. On the consent docket, the Worth County Board of Commissioners Office would like to remove from its inventory one identity card cross-cutting paper shredder model SH 92101 PL, does not work. One executive machine shredder model EPS 611X, does not work. And one Kodak copier ESP 5250 all-in-one printer, does not work.
Make a motion, we should.
All in favor? Okay, personnel considerations. Under the jail, notification of new hire for deputy sex offender, Lisa Stocks, effective date 1/27/14. Did we find that money? Did we find them any money? Where was it at?
All up down the budget.
In salary and wages, and have $1,300 left over at the end of the year.
You're not gonna need that extra money somewhere else, are you, Sheriff?
Can you move that salary and wages?
That's right.
As long as you found the money. Okay. Request, let's see, who's this?
I thought we'd already done these.
Thought we had to, but I swear I can't remember. We moved her, but I don't think we got her. I don't think we did this at the last
We
meeting.
didn't do that last meeting was December the 3rd.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
That is when Mr. Judge Strength came before you, and he was asked to go back and revisit his budget. You did discuss it in detail, but he was gonna compare based on, he was waiting to see if, Ms. Meriden decided to retire.
And she did.
Yeah.
But it was after the meeting, it wasn't determined at that time.
Okay. Okay. Under magistrate request pay rate adjustment for Tammy Powell.
You just have to acknowledge that.
Okay. Public Works, acknowledge resignation of Tony Intrican, effective date 1/17/14.
Make a motion that we accept his resignation.
Second.
I'll second with a question. What was his position out there? Does
He was a
anyone
laborer.
know?
He was a laborer that was moved to a mower operator.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm hoping it would be the pothole supervisor. Have any of y'all rode any of the roads much lately?
Oh, yes.
I'm gonna tell you, it's all you can do to keep from wrecking.
We're working on that, Mr. Billy.
And also, Mr. Chairman, we need to advertise to replace this guy.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Merritt Mr. Merritt and I discussed the vacancies, and of course, after the fact, after the board accept the resignation, then he will be making a request to replace this position.
Okay, okay. All righty, all in favor of Ms. Bozeman's motion to accept the resignation of Tony Intrican, effective date 1/17/14? All in favor?
All right.
Okay, under announcements, Board of Commissioners meeting, first meeting in February.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Gaines and I talked about that.
Okay.
We borrowed a calendar to change it to the 6th, which will be on Thursday of the same week, because we'll be in Atlanta on Tuesday.
Okay.
You need that in a form of a motion, right? Is that
Right.
all right with you?
Y'all trust me, I'll take care of things while y'all gone. No, that's fine.
You wanna do it in the daytime or at night?
Day.
In the day?
Yes.
Can I make a motion that we, change our Board of Commissioners meeting from the 4th of February to the 6th at 9 a.m.
Okay.
Second motion.
All in favor?
All right.
Alright,
Okay. Commissioner Gaines, Bozeman and County Clerk Renee Quid will be attending ACC 2014 Capital Connection Conference in Atlanta on February the 2nd and 4th of 2014. And I will be out of the county from January the 18th.
Out of county, we out of state.
Be out of the world, I think, going to California. Got to-
Not out there.
I've got to accompany my wife for major pulmonary surgery in California. And so we'll be gone for about a month. So we request all prayers and everything that her surgery goes well. So I want to get back to the county. I don't relish being in California for a month. Know nothing about California.
Weather's great.
Ma'am?
Weather's great.
Yeah, I hear it's great.
The weather's
San
great,
Diego.
and a hamburger costs $15.
That's right, that's right.
Mr. Chairman, before we close, I just wanted to note, make sure that we post and advertise the new meeting date in February, just so that the community will know. And we'll
Okay.
comply with the Open Meetings
Alright.
Act. Thank you.
Okay. All right, that concludes the meeting. I need a motion for adjournment.
I make the motion that we adjourn.
Okay, second. Mr. Joe, all in favor? Aye.
Mike, y'all be safe.
I'm sure
We'll
it's
have y'all in
right.
our prayers.
Certainly wish y'all the best, Mr. Cosby.
I'm gonna leave my junk right here.
I'm gonna eat some of it.